My name is Navarra, and I am 30 years old. This year, I didn't even wait until midnight. I already knew they wouldn't call. I knew because they hadn't last year, or the year before that. Still, I watched the clock until it flicked from 11:59 to 12:01, my phone face up on the coffee table like it might suddenly remember me. It didn't. I turned 30 in a silence that felt deliberate, the kind that sits heavy in your chest and makes you wonder how many times something has to happen before it stops being an accident. The worst part was I had reminded them this time. Not dramatically, not with guilt. Just a casual message in the family group chat 3 days earlier saying I might do something small at home if anyone was around. No one replied, not even a thumbs up. I saw the read receipts. Seen by Mom, seen by Madison. Silence. I told myself they were busy. Life happens. I had no reason to make it a big deal, except it always seemed to happen to me. That morning, my son jumped onto the bed shouting for waffles, blissfully unaware of dates or expectations. My husband was already in the kitchen, batter mixed, strawberries cut, a single candle stuck awkwardly into the waffle iron. He kissed my cheek and said happy birthday like he meant it, like it mattered. It should have been enough. I told myself it was. But there was still that quiet ache, the one that comes from knowing people who are supposed to love you didn't even think to say your name. I tried not to check my phone again, but old habits die hard. When I opened Instagram, it was right there. Madison, standing in an empty living room with floor-to-ceiling windows and brand new hardwood floors, grinning like she'd just won something she'd never worked for. The caption read, "Thanks Mom and Dad for helping me get this place. Couldn't have done it without you." I stared at it longer than I should have. This was the same sister who had called me last month crying because she was about to be evicted. I'd sent her money without hesitation. She never paid it back, never even thanked me properly. I didn't cry. I did not yell. Something inside me just collapsed quietly, like a support beam giving out after years of strain. I went through my contacts one by one and blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Madison, no message, no explanation, just done. The quiet afterward felt strange, almost peaceful, like I could finally breathe. It didn't last. 2 days later, at 9:06 in the morning, the doorbell rang. I was still in my robe, my toddler balanced on my hip, when I opened the door and saw my father standing there with a paper bag in his hand, and that nervous look he gets when he knows he's messed up. He said he needed to talk, said it was important. I stepped aside and let him in without a word. He sat down like nothing had happened, like he hadn't forgotten my birthday for the 3rd year in a row, like he hadn't helped my sister into a brand new apartment while pretending money didn't matter. He started talking about Madison, about moving boxes, about parking downtown, about how exhausting it had been. He laughed at one point, told a story about her not understanding her buzzer system, like I was supposed to find it charming. I leaned against the counter and waited. He talked and talked, never once mentioning me, until finally he said he'd noticed something was wrong when he tried to text me about a surprise medical bill and realized he was blocked. That was the first honest thing he said all morning. I asked him if he even knew what day my birthday was. He said the 12th, then corrected himself quickly. The 11th. Blamed stress. Said they'd meant to call. Then he slid the paper bag toward me. Inside was a grocery store card and a $50 gift card. I stared at it, realizing this was what I was worth to them after everything. My dad watched my face carefully as I stared at the card and the gift card like they might explain something if I looked long enough. I think he expected relief, maybe even gratitude, like this small gesture could rewind time and fix the part where they forgot I existed. I finally looked up at him and asked if he knew how many times I'd covered their bills in the last 2 years. His brow furrowed, confused in a way that felt almost rehearsed. I reminded him about the internet bill when they were short, the gas bill the winter before, the power bill when Mom called crying about shut-off notices. I told him about the 4 times I Venmo'd Madison rent when her roommate bailed. Not once, 4 times. No repayment, no thank you. He didn't interrupt me. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, like he'd never added it up before. He said he was sorry. He said Mom felt awful. He said Madison missed me. Then he suggested we all meet for lunch that weekend, somewhere neutral, casual, just to talk and clear the air. He said it in that hopeful tone he uses when he thinks the worst is over. I hesitated longer than I should have. Part of me wanted to say no, to close the door and keep it closed. Another part of me still believed that if I showed up, if I explained myself clearly enough, they might finally see me. So I said, okay. He smiled like a problem had been solved and left with a promise to text details later. The restaurant was exactly the kind of place Madison liked. Small and tucked away on a side street, with prices that made you feel like you'd done something fancy just by sitting down. I knew it before I even walked in. She'd posted about it the week before, a perfectly staged shot of her wineglass and pasta. When we arrived, they were already seated. Mom waved cheerfully. Dad stood to pull out my chair. Madison gave me a tight smile that felt more polite than warm. My husband sat close beside me, his hand resting lightly on my back. He'd been warning me for months that they were using me. I never wanted to believe him. The first 20 minutes felt like small talk at a stranger's wedding. They asked about our son, about my husband's job, about how the house was coming along. No one mentioned my birthday. No one mentioned the fact that I'd blocked them. It was like those things had never happened. Then Madison started talking about her apartment, about the security garage, the floor-to-ceiling windows, how she was thinking about getting a puppy now that she had space. She thanked Mom and Dad again, right there at the table. I felt my husband stiffen beside me. Then the conversation shifted. Mom sighed and said things had been tough lately. Dad chimed in about unexpected bills and insurance issues. Vague at first, then more specific. He said they hated to ask, but if they didn't make a payment soon, they might lose the car. Madison jumped in, saying she wished she could help, but her bills were already too high. She said she was stretched thin. She said it while a designer bag rested beside her chair, the kind she'd never bought when she was actually struggling. I knew what they were doing. I'd been here before. This was the moment I always stepped in, asked how much, saved the day. My husband squeezed my hand under the table, a quiet warning. I ignored it. I asked how much. The number made my stomach twist. A few thousand, enough to matter, enough to hurt. Mom said they didn't know who else to turn to. Dad said I'd always been so good to them, and like I always did, I nodded. I said I'd transfer it later that night. Relief washed over their faces. Madison didn't even look up from her phone. On the drive home, my husband was silent. When we got inside, he shut the door and asked me why I kept doing it. Why I kept draining our savings for people who didn't even remember my birthday. Why I was taking money from our son's future just to keep them afloat. I didn't have a good answer. I said I wanted peace. I said I wanted them to care, even if I had to buy it. He looked at me and said the thing I didn't want to hear. They don't care, Navarra. They never did. That night, after our son was asleep, I sent the money anyway, telling myself it would be the last time. Deep down, I already knew it wouldn't be. 3 weeks passed with nothing. No thank you, no check-in, not even a lazy emoji in the group chat. I told myself not to care, told myself I was done waiting. But every morning, I still checked my bank account and saw that missing $3,000 like a bruise that refused to fade. It wasn't just the money. It was the silence that came with it, the way they took what they needed and vanished, like that was the natural order of things. At first, I convinced myself they were embarrassed, that maybe they felt guilty and didn't know how to face me. That theory lasted until a random Thursday afternoon when I was half scrolling Facebook while my son napped on the couch beside me. A video popped up from one of Madison's friends, the kind of person who overshares every second of their life. Music was blaring, people were yelling, and the camera swung wildly through a living room lit with fairy lights. Then it landed on Madison standing in the middle, holding a glass of champagne, balloons everywhere, gifts stacked against the wall, and a brand new leather sectional behind her. The caption read, "Maddie's housewarming bash was fire. So proud of her. New job, new place, new life." My chest tightened. I clicked through more photos. There it was again. Madison posing with a designer tote bag. Captioned, "First big girl bonus." The date stamp made my stomach flip. She'd started a full-time job nearly a month before that lunch. She'd signed the offer, gotten a bonus, and still sat across from me, telling me she was stretched while letting me cover Mom and Dad's bills. I called my husband into the room and handed him my phone without saying a word. He scrolled through the posts, jaw tightening with each swipe. When he handed it back, he didn't yell or lecture. He just walked out of the room, and somehow that hurt more than anything he could have said. I stared at the old Venmo transaction, the date glaring back at me, 2 days before her job announcement. Part of me still wanted to believe my parents didn't know, that maybe Madison hadn't told them, that maybe I was overthinking again. So I did something stupid. I called her. She didn't answer. I left a controlled voicemail, told her I'd seen the post and just wanted to understand. I asked why she hadn't said anything at lunch, why she'd let me pay again. She never called back. The next night, I got a text from my mom instead. One line. We didn't want to cause more tension between you and your sister. No apology, no explanation, just that. Like lying to me and using my money was somehow protecting me. I showed the message to my husband. He read it once and said I needed to block them again, all of them, this time for good. I couldn't answer. I felt stupid, exposed, like every warning he'd given me was crashing down at once. I defended them for years, ignored the favoritism, the gaslighting, the way I was only needed when something broke. Now I was broke, exhausted, and finally forced to admit I'd been the punchline. The next morning, the bank called. My husband answered. Someone had tried to use his debit card online to pay a bill, a Comcast account in my dad's name, the same one we'd helped with before. My dad had kept the card number, saved it, used it when he thought we wouldn't notice. My husband canceled the card, locked down the accounts, and came into the kitchen, looking calmer than I felt. He told me I wasn't giving them another dollar, that he was going to deal with it now. I didn't ask how. Part of me didn't want to know. 2 hours later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. It was Madison. She didn't even say hello. She went straight for the throat, telling me I'd embarrassed myself, that sending my husband to handle things was pathetic. She called him controlling, said he had no business showing up at our parents' house. She said I was weak for letting him fight my battles. Then she got cruel. She said she was tired of me playing the martyr, tired of me acting like the victim, that just because I had a kid and a mortgage didn't make me better than anyone else. She said our parents helped her because she deserved it, and then she laughed. She told me I'd always be the bitter one, the one who kept receipts, the one who couldn't stand that she was loved more, that I'd never be happy because people like me always needed someone else to blame. I didn't say a word. I just listened until she hung up. I slid down the wall in the hallway and sat there, phone still in my hand, heart pounding, mind buzzing. It was like every quiet suspicion I'd ever had was suddenly spoken out loud. They knew what they were doing. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. When my husband came home, he found me there. I asked him if he'd yelled. He shook his head and said he didn't need to. He told me he'd gone to my parents' house, explained everything, and told them we were done. If they didn't give the money back that day, we'd press charges. He said it calmly, clearly. They didn't argue. My dad went to the kitchen and came back with an envelope, $3,000 in cash. I held it and felt nothing. My husband told me now it was my choice whether they ever came back into my life, that he was done, and he thought I should be too. That night, lying in bed beside my sleeping son, I realized Madison's words didn't hurt the way they used to. They sounded empty. I wasn't confused anymore. They hadn't forgotten me by accident. They just didn't think I mattered enough to treat differently. And once I saw that clearly, something in me finally let go. I didn't block them right away. Every instinct screamed to shut the door and never look back. But I waited 3 days, not because I hoped they'd apologize or fix anything, but because I needed to know that when I ended it, it would be final, and not another boundary I'd erase the next time someone cried. I spent those days quietly. I didn't vent. I didn't call friends. I watched my son line up his toy cars with absolute focus, the kind of attention I used to give to trying to earn love from people who never noticed. I watched my husband cook dinner and clean up like it was just another night, steady and present, the opposite of the chaos I'd been excusing for years. By the third night, I was brushing my teeth, staring at my own reflection, when it hit me. I hadn't cried. Not after Madison's call. Not after the money came back. Not after the debit card scare. Because I wasn't sad anymore. I was done. The kind of done that feels heavy but solid, like a door you close carefully because you know you won't be opening it again. I opened my phone and deleted my dad's contact, then my mom's, then Madison's. I paused on her name longer than the others, not out of doubt, but because I realized I wasn't just letting go of her. I was letting go of the version of myself who kept trying to win her approval. I deleted it. The relief was immediate and quiet. 2 weeks later, a text came from an unknown number. One sentence. You're really going to let him come between us? No name, no punctuation, no courage. I didn't reply. I deleted it and went back to my day. Because there had never been an us. There had been me showing up, covering gaps, absorbing damage, and calling it love. And there had been them taking until there was nothing left to take. The money was back in our account, but something else had shifted too. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped measuring love by how much I was willing to give without being asked. I stopped believing that peace had to be purchased. I understood then what people mean when they say, peace isn't free. You have to cut the rope to get it. And still, something pressed at my chest. Not guilt, not regret. A sense that something needed to be said out loud. Not to defend myself, not to argue, but to end the story properly. So I did the one thing no one expected. I went over there. I didn't call. I didn't warn them. I drove over late afternoon and knocked on the door I hadn't stood in front of since Christmas. My dad answered, startled, unsure whether to hug me or brace himself. I walked in and sat at the dining table where so many milestones had been half celebrated. My mom came in from the kitchen, cautious, waiting. No one touched their drinks. I told them everything. I told them I knew about Madison's job before they asked for money, about the party, about the debit card, about the things Madison said to me. But more than that, I told them how tired I was. How exhausting it had been, being the dependable one, the strong one, the one who never fell apart even when I was barely holding it together. I told them I didn't respect them anymore. Not because they'd made mistakes, but because they'd never owned them. My dad said he thought I was just stronger than Madison, that I didn't need as much. My mom said maybe she didn't know how to show love in a way I could feel. For the first time, it didn't sound like excuses. It sounded like truth. We talked for 2 hours. No yelling, no tears, just honesty that had been overdue for years. When I left, I felt lighter, not healed. Lighter. I haven't told my husband yet, not because I'm hiding it, but because I'm still deciding what it means. He went to war for me, protected me when I wouldn't, and now I've cracked the door open again. Part of me feels guilty. A bigger part feels calm, like I'm not trapped in the same story anymore. Like maybe this time, whatever comes next, I get to choose it. I told my husband that night. I waited until Marcus was asleep, until the house had settled into that quiet hum it gets after bedtime. I didn't make it dramatic. I didn't soften it either. I told him I'd gone over there, that I'd talked to them, that it wasn't about money or apologies anymore. I told him I needed to say what I'd been carrying for years, out loud, without interruption. He listened without cutting me off, without that tight look he gets when he thinks I'm about to get hurt again. When I finished, he nodded slowly and said he wasn't angry. He said he trusted me, but he needed me to promise one thing. That I wouldn't go back to being the one who sacrificed herself just to keep everyone else comfortable. I promised him I wouldn't, and for the first time I actually believed myself. Weeks passed. Nothing exploded. No dramatic calls. No sudden emergencies. The silence felt different this time, not heavy, just neutral. My parents sent short messages now and then. No requests, no guilt, just updates. A photo of the dog asleep in the sun. A picture of my mom's failed attempt at baking cookies without Marcus there to supervise. They didn't ask to see him. They didn't ask for forgiveness. They waited. That alone told me they were finally learning something. By early spring, I let them come to the park with us for an hour. Public place. No gifts, no money, just time. My dad pushed Marcus on the swings. My mom sat on the bench watching, hands folded, like she was afraid to ruin the moment by reaching too far. When Marcus asked if they could come again sometime, I said maybe. I didn't say when. That mattered. The real shift came quietly. My brother stopped calling altogether. Madison disappeared from my life completely, and I realized I didn't miss her. Not even the idea of her. Jenna stayed close. She checked in, defended me when necessary, and for the first time didn't play peacekeeper for our parents. She chose a side, and it was mine. That alone healed something I didn't know was still bleeding. By the time Thanksgiving came around, I hosted. My house, my rules, everyone brought one dish. No grand gestures, no uneven piles of gifts, just food, conversation, and space at the table that didn't depend on who needed help or who looked good online. When my son ran around the living room laughing with his cousins, I realized something important. This was what I'd always wanted. Not approval, not repayment, just balance. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat on the couch with my husband and watched the lights flicker on the tree. He asked me if I was okay. I told him I was better than okay. I was free. Free from hoping someone would finally see me. Free from measuring my worth by how much I gave. Free from the constant question of whether love would be returned or just expected. I don't know what the future looks like with my parents. I'm not pretending everything is fixed. Boundaries still exist. Trust rebuilds slowly, if at all. But I know this. I will never again beg to be remembered. I will never again pay for affection. And I will never again teach my child that love means being last in line. This year, my birthday came quietly. My husband baked a cake. My son helped frost it, crooked letters and all. My phone buzzed once in the evening, a simple message from my mom. Happy birthday, Karen. We love you. No excuses, no guilt, just words. I smiled, set my phone down, and went back to the people who had never once made me feel invisible. That was enough. The thing no one tells you about choosing yourself is that it doesn't arrive with fireworks. It settles in quietly, like a room finally exhaling after years of holding its breath. Weeks turned into months and nothing dramatic happened. No emergencies, no sudden apologies wrapped in tears, no late-night calls asking me to fix what they'd broken. That absence told me more than any speech ever could. My parents stayed careful. They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for favors. They didn't try to corner me into emotional conversations that ended with me feeling responsible for their feelings. When they reached out, it was small and specific. Pictures, updates, questions that didn't carry an agenda behind them. I kept my boundaries firm, not cold, just clear. Visits stayed short. Locations stayed neutral. I watched their behavior instead of listening to promises. That was new for me. Madison never tried again. Not after that last message from an unknown number. Not after the money came back. Not after she realized I wasn't playing the same game anymore. For a while I wondered if that should hurt. It didn't. It felt like removing a splinter I'd grown used to ignoring. The space she left behind wasn't empty. It was peaceful. Jenna became my anchor in ways I hadn't expected. She didn't try to fix anything or smooth it over. She just showed up. Coffee dates, late-night texts, quiet support that didn't ask me to explain myself again. One night she admitted how guilty she felt for believing the version of the story our parents had fed her for years. I told her guilt wasn't useful anymore. Awareness was. She nodded like she'd been waiting to hear that. The biggest change was inside my own house. My husband stopped watching me like he was waiting for the next shoe to drop. I stopped bracing myself for disappointment. We talked about money openly, about boundaries, about what we wanted our son to learn from all of this. I told him I didn't want Marcus growing up thinking love was something you earned by being convenient. He agreed. We built routines that protected us instead of draining us. My birthday came and went again, quietly and intentionally. No big plans. No expectations. My son helped frost a cake, crooked letters spelling my name. My husband lit the candles and waited while I made a wish I didn't need to say out loud. My phone buzzed once that evening. A message from my mom. Just a sentence. No guilt. No explanations. Happy birthday, Karen. We love you. I read it, sat with it, then put my phone down without replying right away. Not because I was punishing anyone, but because I didn't need to chase the feeling anymore. What I learned through all of this is simple, even if it took me years to understand. Love that only shows up when you're useful isn't love. It's a transaction. And I'm done negotiating my worth. I didn't lose a family. I stopped losing myself. Whatever comes next, it will be built on choice, not obligation, on respect, not guilt. And this time, I don't shrink to fit anyone else's version of me.